Welcome to the 2021 MakeMore Manufacturing Summit. This two-day event highlights technology with an overview of Industry 4.0 and the importance of manufacturing in Florida's overall economy. Florida is home to over 21,000 manufacturers, accounting for over 380,000 high-wage jobs in the state, and also for almost 5% of Florida's gross domestic product. First up today, you'll hear from Dave Dragon, a Florida Makes business advisor, who will set the stage with an overview of Industry 4.0 and its impact on manufacturing. And then we'll hear from Roberto Valdez, Director of Cybersecurity Automation at Kaufman Rawson, on leveraging technology to help manufacturers and achieve their strategic objectives. Later in the program, Paul Soule, the CEO of the Florida High-Tech Corridor Council, will lead a panel of distinguished business and government leaders in a discussion on how advanced technology is making a difference in Florida's manufacturing sector. The 2021 MakeMore Manufacturing Summit is hosted by Associated Industries of Florida, the Florida Chamber of Commerce, Career Source Florida, Enterprise Florida, and Florida Makes. And now, here is your host from Florida Makes, June Wolf.
Good morning. I'm June Wolf with Florida Makes, standing in for Zoraida Velasco, who lost her voice. And of course, I'm hoping she'll find it in the next half hour. But until that time, I'll be your host. So welcome. Welcome to the 2021 MakeMore Manufacturing Summit, Segment 3, Technology Acceleration. We have a great couple of hours planned for you today. If you participated in the live networking, I'm sure you enjoyed meeting other manufacturing stakeholders across the state. If you missed the networking, please make sure to introduce yourself in the chat and tell us why you're here. We will have live networking again for another 30 minutes at the end of today's program, and we really appreciate Dave Dragon for helping us lead the conversation today. Thanks, Dave. Before we get to the program, here is some housekeeping information that will make your virtual experience with us today a lot smoother. Those of you who have been with us since segment 1 in June might already know this information, but if you're new to the summit, we want to tell you what to do if you need help. If you're having technical difficulties, please click on the yellow square at the question mark found at the bottom of your screen. You can also email events@floridamakes.com with any questions or email our team at the studio by downloading the event support contact sheet from the resource box. Or even easier, submit your questions through the Q&A box on the left of your screen. Anything you submit through the Q&A box will be sent privately to our production team here in the studio. If you'd like to interact with other attendees, you'll click on the group chat icon, which is the icon on the far right of the engagement tools at the bottom of your screen. If the media player where you are watching me disappears, it's because it was inadvertently, or maybe not inadvertently, minimized. To get to it, and to get to open it back up, simply click on the red icon with the triangle inside of a square that looks like a play button. You can also manipulate the size of the media player inside the console and move it around the screen. If you are watching from a large monitor, sometimes the layout gets distorted and you'll want to adjust where your engagement tools are placed. By the way, today's sessions are being recorded and you will be able to view them later on demand, maybe to show a colleague or to listen to a particular speaker again. Our segments are also being recorded because Florida Tax Watch will be writing a report summarizing our discussions and issuing recommendations based on your feedback throughout the different segments of the 2021 MakeMore Manufacturing Summit. Making sure you are comfortable with all the engagement tools that we have made available for you here is very important to us. We want to make sure we capture your options so that we can formulate collective action items later. If you've had any trouble using any of the tools at the bottom of your screen, please send us a message. Now that we've gotten all the technical matters out of the way, let me tell you a little about Florida Makes and the MakeMore Manufacturing Initiative. Florida Makes is a statewide, industry-led, public-private partnership. It's operated by an alliance of Florida's regional manufacturers associations with the sole mission of strengthening and advancing Florida's economy. This is accomplished by improving the competitiveness, productivity, and technological performance of its manufacturing sector, with an emphasis on small to mid-sized firms. Since our inception in 2016, Florida Makes has had an economic impact of $2.5 billion, with almost 16,000 jobs created or retained. This impact has been made possible thanks to the organizations that comprise the Florida Makes Network. Their logos are being displayed behind me. MakeMore was created in 2018 as a leadership-focused initiative developed by Florida Makes in partnership with Associated Industries of Florida, CareerSource Florida, Enterprise Florida, and the Florida Chamber of Commerce. The collective goals of those hosting partnerships is to elevate the state's 21,000 plus manufacturing companies and reveal their impact on the economy. Our organizations recognize the importance of diversifying our economy and prioritizing the growth of an industry that provides high-wage, high-value jobs, which can ultimately improve the quality of life here in Florida. We're not the only ones who believe in manufacturing, though. We have sponsors who have made a commitment to helping us achieve that goal. The main sponsor for the third segment of MakeMore Manufacturing Summit is Kaufman Rawson. Let's watch a short video from them to identify what they do.
You can have an analyst spend hours querying a database and preparing the data, or you can subscribe to a software service. But the trade-off of spending extensive time or paying high fees is less than ideal. Fortunately, robotic process automation uses software to automate activities usually performed by people. When designed properly, bots can perform an activity in less time and more reliably than people. And automation of tasks means that people can focus their time doing the more critical and judgmental analysis. Kaufman Rawson can help you gain the benefits of automation. Are you ready to start doing more with less? Contact Kaufman Rawson today.
Special thanks to Kaufman and Rawson, the technology segment sponsor, Synovus, the Florida Economic Development Council, and the rest of the organizations you see behind me on the screen are also sponsors. I encourage you to visit our sponsor booths in the MakeMore Florida Showcase Expo to learn more about them. It's the financial and the in-kind contributions of our sponsors and partners that make the summit possible. This year's MakeMore Manufacturing Summit, our third, has taken place across 3 virtual events: business growth, talent development, and today's technology acceleration. Our final event will be a hybrid. You will have the choice of attending online like today or in person in Orlando on October 26th. Look for more information soon about that segment titled Outlook 2022. The talent development segment was last month. Today and tomorrow is technology acceleration, and October 26th will be the in-person and hybrid event during manufacturing month, recapping all three segments just mentioned and offered an outlook for Florida's future manufacturing. The COVID-19 pandemic has underscored manufacturing's role in providing products that are critical to health, safety, national security, and the community of multiple industries. It has also revealed the extent to which global supply chains are exposed to shocks and disruptions. All of this has occurred at a moment when new technologies, process innovations, and demand growth are reshaping the sector worldwide. And what has come to light? Companies already engaged in advanced technologies made out better during the pandemic. Today's segment focuses on technology, and more specifically, Industry 4.0. We hope all manufacturers will learn and adopt advanced technologies in Industry 4.0. I must say, I was happy to see so many leaders in our attendance list from the worlds of economic development, education and training, government, trade association, and most importantly, manufacturers. If you haven't done so already, please introduce yourself in the group chat box at the bottom right of the screen. As I said earlier, your voice during today's discussions is paramount. Please use that chat box or the Q&A box to submit your questions and comments to the speakers live. We want you to exchange ideas with them and with other attendees. Our goal is to foster a dialogue about the importance of growing Florida's manufacturing sector and the resources available to make that happen. Together, we can advance Florida's technology and economy. As long as we collaborate and leverage our resources, we will be able to accelerate the productivity and technological performance of the state's manufacturing sector. As of last October, Florida ranked 30th for manufacturing productivity in the United States. Our collective work through the MakeMore initiatives will increase that ranking in the future. By the way, in 2016, that number was 34, so we are making progress. Our efforts will also help us reach the Florida Chamber's 2030 blueprint goal of becoming the 5th state for manufacturing jobs from our current ranking of 12th in the United States. To open our MakeMore manufacturing segment today on technology acceleration, Dave Dragon, business advisor with Florida Makes, will set the stage for us and define Industry 4.0, talk about the 9 technologies, and highlight why manufacturers are adopting Industry 4.0 technologies. So Dave, it's over to you.
Good morning, and welcome to the MakeMore Manufacturing Summit Technology segment. My name is Dave Dragon, and welcome to the summit. This morning, I'm going to talk a little bit about the technologies that represent Industry 4.0. And a lot of people will be saying, what is Industry 4.0? So at the end of my presentation, I hope you're going to be one of the experts in Industry 4.0, at least knowing what it is. So let's get started. I'll do a brief introduction of myself. We're going to go into what is Industry 4.0, and then we'll talk about how you can engage with Florida Makes relative to our Industry 4.0 services. So I am a business advisor with Florida Makes. I focus in on Industry 4.0 technologies. I'm a operations and technology consultant. I've spent the first half of my career in manufacturing, in the second half of my career in consulting and technology. And I've been in manufacturing my entire career. I have a bachelor's degree in MBA, and I'm also a Six Sigma Black Belt. and I'm author of the book I Solve Mysteries, which I published in 2019. So that's a little bit about me. So Industry 4.0, where did this all start? It started about a decade ago in the German government, where they were looking at how they were going to become smart in their manufacturing technologies and digitize their technologies. So Industry 4.0 has been around for a decade now, so it's nothing new. And a lot of companies have made a lot of progress in Industry 4.0. Others are just getting started, and some are not doing anything. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag out there, but there's a lot of proven business cases now for the success of Industry 4.0. So we have evolved from the Industry 1 in the 17th century, and Industry 2 in the 18th century, and Industry 3 in the 19th century, and then Industry 4.0. It actually started in the latter part of the 19th century. And then in 2000, we know that the internet changed everything for us, both in our personal lives and our business lives. So right now, we're about 20 years from when the internet really clicked in around 2000. One of the things I want to make sure that everybody understands is that these technologies are evolutionary, not revolutionary. A lot of these technologies have been around for 20 years or more. So a company should feel comfortable in using these technologies. And every 5 to 10 years, we get these quantum leaps in technology where the hardware, the software, the data, and all the logic kind of comes together. You've seen that in your personal life and in the business world. We've seen it in what's called in-memory computing. If you think about your laptop and your computer from 5, 10, 15 years ago, they all had hard drives in them. Now all those devices have chips, and everything is done on a solid state chip in that computer. Think about that at an enterprise level. And that's why you've seen over the last 5 to 7 years so much come out about cloud computing and artificial intelligence. So it's the speed now with this in-memory computing that has really changed the way they can go to market with these high-speed technologies. So why are companies implementing Industry 4.0? I go to a number of national conferences. I've talked to a number of people around the country and in the state of Florida. And these are the top reasons companies are implementing Industry 4.0 technology. The chronic labor shortage, it's not going away. Attracting the next generation of employees, improving their operational efficiency, increasing competitiveness, fostering innovation, and then being connected in the connected world. Now, what are the consequences of not doing this? The labor shortage is not going away. What we're hearing across the country and in Florida, that companies have come to realization that this is not going to change. And what are they doing? They're implementing Industry 4.0 technologies and automation. They've come to accept the fact that the shortage is not going away. And now, who are you going to recruit to come in into the next generation in manufacturing? This generation was brought up using a handheld device like the iPhone, and they're used to working that way. So if you don't look at the technologies of Industry 4.0, you're going to have a more difficult time recruiting the next generation of manufacturing employees. That leads to reduction in operational efficiency. And the interesting thing is competition. You typically think of your competition as a person who makes the same product as you do. Well, right now, we're seeing that the competition is your friend down the street, another manufacturer who has implemented these technologies, and they're actually poaching and recruiting the new generation coming in. So your competitor is both from a product standpoint and companies that are implementing these Industry 4.0 technologies to attract the next generation of manufacturing employee. Fostering innovation, we have a number of examples around fostering innovation. And then again, one of the things we're hearing is companies are, in the supply chain in particular, are saying to companies downstream, you need to be in this connected world. I'm not going to be dealing with you in Excel spreadsheets and emails and any of that, or you need to get your company organized. So the consequences are great if you don't do anything relative to Industry 4.0. So what are the elements? I'm not going to go through all of these. There are 9 foundational elements of Industry 4.0. So now you know exactly what it is. If somebody asks you, what is Industry 4.0? Write these down and you should be able to rattle them off. I'm going to let you read them. I'm going to show you an individual slide on each one. So we'll just go and talk about them as they go through the slide. So next one will be cybersecurity. As you know, cybersecurity is in the news all the time. People are getting hacked left and right. Manufacturing is no exception. Small manufacturing, medium-sized, large manufacturing. Manufacturing is one of the top targets for cyber criminals. And you really need to understand that this is one of the core technologies of Industry 4.0, and it's one of the core technologies of protecting your business. If you don't have a good cybersecurity plan, you're going to have to face some issues going forward with your customers, because they're going to be demanding that you have a cybersecurity plan in place to be able to work with them. The other thing that they're seeing is your customers are going to be requiring you to get cybersecurity insurance. So you have to have a plan, you have to have a program, and you may have to start carrying cybersecurity insurance. If you're in the military with this, there's the CMMC level 3 requirement for cybersecurity. It's very detailed, and we have a number of providers that can help you along the way in that journey. Cybersecurity is not going away. The industrial Internet of Things. This is where you're connecting all these different devices, both inside your plant and outside your plant. One of the most important things to remember about IIoT is it creates a lot of data. So if you're going to go down the IIoT path, you really need to have a very good strategy for how you're going to be managing the data that comes from these systems. We have some interesting suppliers that we work with now that use IIoT devices to help you run your plants more effectively. I think one of the more interesting ones that I've run across is we have this great manufacturing company on the west coast of Florida that makes fire trucks. And what they've done is they've taken their fire truck and turned it into one big IIoT device. So all of the different systems on there capturing information, and now they're able to analyze the performance of the fire trucks. One of the things that Industry 4.0 does is foster innovation. This company also has recently come out with an electronic fire truck or electric fire truck. So again, these technologies do foster innovation and make people think differently in how they operate. Cloud computing. Cloud computing has actually been around for at least 20 years. One of the reasons you hear about it more and more recent years is that this is one of those technologies that benefited from in-memory computing. 20 years ago, I was with Oracle, a large technology company, and a couple of executives left to start a ERP system, enterprise resource planning system in the cloud. And people are like, what are you, crazy? Who's going to buy an ERP system in the cloud? This is 20 years ago. Today, you can't find an ERP system that's not in the cloud. And almost any software application you work with today are all cloud-based applications. So again, this is one of those evolutionary technologies that have been around for at least 20 years. Edge computing. When they started turning on these IIoT devices in the large plants, they found that they had a lot of data coming at them. And they couldn't really use the data effectively in real time when it was being moved to the cloud. So they put this architecture in place called edge computing. So they put an edge device in the plant on the shop floor to connect it to the data. Then they can run real-time analytics on the edge device. Then they send it up to the cloud for the longer-term analytics. So this is part of the cloud architecture in how you capture information from IIoT devices. Big data and analytics. Big data to you is small data to somebody else, and small data to them is big data to you. It's all relative to your company. The important thing is we are inundated with data. And when you're inundated with data, you have to have a good data strategy. So this is one of the areas that I find manufacturing companies struggle with the most, is having a very good data strategy. And relative to analytics, if you don't have good data strategy, your analytics aren't going to be very good. So the data strategy analytics go hand in hand. This is one of the areas where you see artificial intelligence coming in. This is one of the first applications for AI, because AI, again, benefited from the in-memory computing. So analytics has been a very popular application for AI in a variety of different areas. So again, in big data and analytics, all relative to your side, have a good data strategy. And if you have a good data strategy, you'll be able to get good analytics. Horizontal and vertical integration. This is a big area. If you think of a company, you may have a CAD system, and you have a PLM system, a product lifecycle management. You may have a CRM system, customer resource management. And then you're going to have an ERP system, an enterprise resource management system. And under the ERP, you're going to have a MES system, manufacturing execution system. And you may have a maintenance management system. And then you're going to have a transportation management system and a warehouse management system. So all these systems have to be integrated from a vertical and horizontal system integration. And then it's like, how do you deal with not only inside your four walls, but with your trading partners, both your customers and your suppliers. So this is a big strategy area around digital transformation and connecting all the different smart devices and different systems that you have within your organization. So again, this is where you need a really sound digital transformation strategy. So we're done talking now about some of the foundational technologies. These are the more advanced technologies that you're seeing in Industry 4.0. Additive manufacturing. I was very surprised how much additive manufacturing I saw around the state of Florida since I've been working on different projects. It really is penetrated greatly in the state of Florida and obviously around the country. So it falls into three categories. The first category is in R&D with prototyping. The second one is companies are actually using additive manufacturing in manufacturing. And then the third one is maintenance, where instead of calling the supplier for a repair part, they have plastic additive 3D printers, and they have metal additive 3D printers in the plants, and they're printing their repair parts right on site. So those are the three areas that we're seeing in additive manufacturing. And again, this is one of those technologies that's been around for many, many years. Augmented reality. So augmented reality is the intersection of the real world with the virtual world. We've seen these fall into three categories also. The first category is in the sales area, where people are building these models that they can go to their customers with and actually show them what the equipment's going to look like, whether it's a compressor or whether it's a full plant automation of a plant in progress. So they use it from a sales standpoint. The other area they use is field service. So they build augmented reality applications for field service people that go into the field and problem solve with equipment. And what they do is they take the information that comes out of the augmented reality application, send it back to an engineering team at the home office or any place in the world, and they're problem solving real time with the augmented reality application. The other one we're seeing is in capturing tribal knowledge in a manufacturing plant. One of the challenges we've had for many years is capturing all the information from an operator operating a piece of equipment. Now what they're doing is they're videotaping the actual operation and the operator. And then when a new person comes into the department or into the company, they're using augmented reality as a training tool to show them the right way of performing a particular task. So three different kind of applications right now we're seeing in the marketplace for augmented reality, and I'm sure there are many more. Autonomous robots. This is in the area where people are really looking at from an automation standpoint in their plants in dealing with the chronic labor shortage. The first one is an example of a welding robot. That's a standalone robot. There's a real shortage of welders in the marketplace. So people are looking at putting in robotic welders to be able to satisfy, and that's just one application for this. Down on the bottom, it's what's called a cobot. So that's an intersection of a robot with a human. These are very popular in the marketplace for certain applications. And the picture in the middle is a warehouse, like an Amazon warehouse, where they're using these autonomous vehicles to operate the facilities. In manufacturing, where you're seeing these pop up is at the end of a production line, where instead of having a forklift operator move a pallet of product into a warehouse, you have the autonomous vehicle at the end of the line. It moves it into the warehouse, and then it puts it up into the shelves. So these are examples of the robotics that people are using in the marketplace today. And then there are digital robots. So digital robots, robotic process automation, and intelligent automation. RPA has been around for many years, and it started in the back office. So if you have ever applied for a job and you've uploaded a resume to a website, they use optical character recognition to capture the information on the resume. It populates the HR system, and it moves the process along in the background. They also use this to automate accounts payable, accounts receivable, treasury transactions. Now they're moving more into the front office with intelligent automation. So as an example, in budgeting and planning and forecasting, they can run multiple scenarios very quickly from an intelligent automation standpoint using AI and business process management and RPA. So that's an example of what's happening there. In manufacturing, they're looking at production planning and detailed scheduling. So this is moving very quickly in different places. Simulation. So this is an interesting area. They're all interesting areas. The picture on the bottom would start with, that's a digital twin of a compressor. So they build these digital models of a piece of equipment or a part, and they can actually run the compressor through its paces to see how it's going to perform. And so this technology has been around for a number of years, and there's quite a few different applications for this digital twin technology. The other one is simulation, the upper left, and that's where they're taking gaming technology now and building simulations of manufacturing and distribution facilities. They do it from a design standpoint when they're first building the facility, and then also they use it to problem solve. So once they have the simulation digital version of the facility, then they can go in, and if they're doing a Kaizen event or continuous improvement project, they can actually visualize what that looks like from a simulation standpoint. We have one supplier that uses a digital twin in their application. They provide inventory management solution. And what they do is they provide a digital twin of the manufacturing plant. And they provide the ability to take a look at the whole facility on an iPad or an iPhone, where you can identify where parts are in the inventory at any one particular time. So there's a number of different applications in manufacturing for these simulations and digital twins. So that's Industry 4.0, all the different technologies associated and some of the areas that we're seeing people using these technologies today. So how do you get started? How do you engage with Florida Makes? One of the ways you want to get started with us is we can do an assessment of where you are from your Industry 4.0 strategies and digital transformation strategies. So we can assess where you are and give you a real good feel for the current state of your organization. From that assessment, then we can help you build a strategy. You need to have a really good strategy around Industry 4.0 and digital transformation. The projects that have failed in the past are the ones that didn't have a strategy, they just jumped in. The ones that have been successful are the ones that they have a well thought out strategy and a plan on how they're going to execute their journey in Industry 4.0. And the third one is if you have immediate operational needs, we have some solution providers that we can come in and help you with your Industry 4.0 or operational needs. We still would want to build a strategy around that, but sometimes you have to fix problems really quickly. So we have some solution providers that are ready to be able to come in and help out. So that's Industry 4.0, the overview. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the MakeMore Summit, and I hope you enjoy the technology portion that's coming up. So take care and have a good summit.
Dave, thanks so much. Up next is a series of stimulating and concise presentations describing different types of technologies sought after today by companies advancing their technology. The technologies covered by these experts are robotic process automation, shortened to RPA, analytics, and additive manufacturing, also known as 3D printing. After these three presentations, you will be able to identify processes well suited for automation, measure return on investment for automation projects, and support solutions and plans for future automation. Our experts today are Roberto Valdez from Kaufman Rawson, Walter Merkus from Witham, and Mindy Beagle from Dimension Works. Take it away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rob Valdez, and I'm the Director of Cybersecurity and Automation Services with Kaufman Rawson. Kaufman Rawson, of course, is a full-service CPA firm with tax, audit, and advisory services, and my role is in that advisory portion. And I do things like exactly what we're going to talk about today, which is automating business processes. And today we're going to talk specifically about doing those types of things for manufacturing organizations. So it's my pleasure to discuss this with you now. Of course, it's hard to have this kind of conversation without at least paying attention to what's going on in the more macro type of environment. And absolutely, I think it's fair to say that manufacturers are finding themselves faced with different types of challenges that many organizations are finding themselves faced with as a result of the pandemic and overall types of economic circumstances. They have to stay lean, agile, flexible, competitive, and just some of the reasons are included in the study that was conducted a couple of months ago, where it was disclosed that U.S. industrial production is down by more than 16% year over year. U.S. total factory orders are down by more than 22% year over year, and production and order levels are still below 2019 levels. So if there's any way to stay very lean, efficient, and competitive, now is certainly a time when manufacturers are trying to do exactly that. And one of the areas that actually takes away from an organization's ability to be lean and competitive and efficient are different types of low value sort of routine processes that are just performed over and over and over and don't necessarily bring a lot of value to customers or other clients or business partners or to the organization itself. An example of some of these types of processes includes things like manipulating a bunch of spreadsheets in Excel. Maybe you're doing a lot of inventory management and reconciliations, and maybe you have one spreadsheet that you do all these in, or you do it across multiple spreadsheets, and you do a sort of analysis, and you're working with all these types of spreadsheets. Well, that sort of routine process of just transforming that data over and over, not bringing a lot of value to the business. Another example might be data entry. Let's say you're entering in move tickets when you're moving inventory or materials around the warehouse, or you're entering in shipping reports or receiving reports, or these types of information into your ERP or enterprise resource planning system, your big database software. Those types of activities also not bringing a lot of value to the organization. Or maybe even just things as simple as accounting, like accounts payable. You receive invoices and you enter them into the accounts payable module or your general ledger package for payment. And it's just the same thing. Just open up a PDF and enter it in, do that sort of thing over and over and over. Also not bringing a lot of value to the organization. These reduce efficiency in a time when it's needed. And not only that, if you're doing these sorts of things manually, you can also create errors that are not really good for the organization and definitely not great for the integrity of data of the organization. As a matter of fact, in a recent survey that was done by Bloomberg BNA, 28% of the respondents say they have made consequential manual data entry errors doing just those types of things. 17% said they deleted customized Excel formulas for those types of spreadsheets we were talking about. 13% responded saying that they actually had to use a different type of calculation outside of their main software. So outside of the database, maybe they were keeping a spreadsheet or maybe even doing stuff on paper as a result of not having the right information in the system. These sorts of things create data problems that just cascade and create additional costs to the business. Well, fortunately, with process automation, you can actually do away with those types of manual processes and find additional efficiency, find additional agility for the organization. And if you take on a good strategy with these types of things, maybe even compete a little better, maybe even bootstrap a little better in tough times. And there's a couple of types of technology that are really good for doing this sort of thing. They include robotic process automation or intelligent automation. These are examples of instances where software can be used to do those types of activities normally done in the computer by people. Anything as simple as keystrokes, the way that people do keystrokes on a keyboard, or mouse clicks, the way you click and open different programs, or even scraping text or from a document or from websites, doing web searches, maybe opening and closing different programs to enter in data, or performing online database searches. Robotic process automation can take care of those kinds of things. Or let's say you're doing something a little more complex. Maybe some judgment is involved, some decision making, trade-offs between costs and benefits. That's where technologies like intelligent automation come in. Intelligent automation can do those things that robotic process automation can do, but can also do far more. Maybe it can use statistical calculations or conditions and criteria to decide which sorts of decisions should be taken. Should we go with that supplier? Should we go with that vendor? Should we go with that business partner? Should we use our supply chain in this way? Should we change some sorts of things around? Or maybe you can read documents, things on screen, sometimes even printed documents that are scanned, occasionally with certain types of technology, even handwriting. Or you need something to consume a large document like a lease or an agreement and digest what's in there and then extract just the most important elements, or maybe have conversations with customers asking the status of an order. That can be handled by natural language communications and natural language processing. So with robotic process automation and intelligent automation, you can use technology to address those types of activities, which can be directly applied to those routine activities that are low value for the organization. And as a result of doing those kinds of things, you can reduce costs, you reduce the amount of errors that are occurring, like we were talking about with manual data input and data entry. You can reduce the amount of time that it takes to do these sorts of tasks over and over, because bots or digital robots in the computer, they don't need coffee breaks. They don't take PTO. You can have them with managed uptime, working round the clock, 24/7, 365 to increase the amount of output or productivity you're getting from a system or a process. Or you can increase the amount of time that your people are spending actually looking at things and making judgment calls and dealing with customers and handling sensitive situations. And whereas people, they don't necessarily record every single activity that they take, especially those activities they take outside of the computer. Well, when digital robots or bots do these kinds of things, every single thing is recorded, so it creates a better audit trail and helps you manage your data better and keep track of how often certain things are being done, so that ultimately you can actually get your hands around your data even better and increase your analytics, increase your insight, increase your informed decision making and data visibility for your organization. So let's take a look at an example of what this sort of thing might look like. Here on the left, you have the traditional manual process where an accounting clerk is receiving in their email an invoice, and it's a PDF for some materials that were just purchased for the business. And now they're going to open up that PDF, they're going to read it, they're going to manually enter in the data into the general ledger or ERP system or the accounts payable module, whatever it is, and then perhaps they'll submit that for approval. Well, a bot or a digital robot that uses this special kind of software can do all of those same activities. You can receive it in the email, extract the details from that PTF by reading that PTF, open up the accounting system or the accounts payable module, enter those details in, or maybe even submit them directly to the database, and then submit that invoice for approval, so that this entire thing can be handled perhaps instantaneously or on a schedule or whatever way makes the most sense for the business. But talking about this scenario only gives you part of the feel, because if a picture speaks 1,000 words, maybe a video speaks 1,000,000. So let's take a look at what this sort of thing actually looks like. Let's pretend that you have an analyst working for your company, going through a bunch of different reports, doing a lot of calculations. This sort of thing can take a lot of time and cost a lot of money for the business. And yeah, they make special software that can help with certain types of things like this, but it's a tough decision for a business, especially right now, to make the trade-off between spending a lot of time with having a person doing it or spending money to have special software. So robotic process automation can help automate those same types of activities that are normally done by people by using these digital robots. And it can do it in less time and do it more reliably, which allows your people to spend their time on those things more valuable to the business. Critical thinking, judgmental analysis, dealing with customers. Here's an example of a bot in action. You're looking at an Excel spreadsheet. An analyst is going to compare itself to some of their competitors. And this analyst just clicks a couple of buttons on the spreadsheet that we set up, and they're going to decide which of their competitors to compare themselves to. In this instance, we're going to use a bank because it's public information and financial institutions are doing this type of thing a lot. So right now we're going to launch the bot, opens up this website that's a publicly available database. It navigates through the website, downloads reports very fast, it pulls out the data, dumps it into Excel, does a bunch of analysis and extractions, and compiles a report that's ready for review with charts and very simple interface, so that management can now look at the decisions that it needs to, instead of spending all that time, maybe hours or even days, crunching numbers. Now people are spending their time actually comparing themselves, in this instance, to their competitors, or looking at what decisions need to be made for the business. So when you're ready to do more with less, robotic process automation and intelligent automation can help with these sorts of things. And if we look at an example specifically of a manufacturer that we were working with, we can look at an example where they were struggling to reconcile inventory between two different systems. And as a matter of fact, there was a very large project where people were going to have to enter in a lot of this inventory manually into a form, get it in the right places, high probability of error being performed, that kind of thing. Not the sort of thing you want people spending days and weeks to do. Instead, we designed an automated solution for performing those reconciliations and identifying those differences at a push of a button. And it had results of 80% cost reduction, 99% error reduction, and all able to be done in 72% less time. This is the power of this type of technology. And it can be available by building it into spreadsheets with the use of macros, by building it into databases or into your computing environment by using traditional scripts like Python scripts or C or C# or .NET, different types of technologies. Or they make special platforms that are specifically designed to do exactly this type of thing. Regardless of the type of solution that would be most appropriate for your organization, regardless of the way that your organization wants to keep costs down, wants to do things more quickly and more effectively than the current cost structure of paying people to do it, you can find the right combination of technologies. And we've worked with a lot of different technologies to make this sort of thing possible. So if you have any types of questions and want to discuss what this type of technology is, robotic process automation, by all means, feel free to contact us, reach out to us, and send us your questions. We're happy to look at your specific scenario and see how we can help you do more with less.
Well, hello. Today we're going to be talking about supply chain as a strategic partner. the digital transformation. My name is Wally Marcus. I'm with head of cloud solutions here at Witham Smith & Brown. Today we're going to talk a little bit about supply chain as a strategic partner and understanding what the digital transformation is. I'm going to try and walk through the traditional to digital supply chain, introduce you to the concept of DSN, Digital Supply Chain Network, discuss new ways to measure success and what analytics might look like in this space, and provide sort of a how to get started and how to dip your toe in the water. What I hope you walk away with is that modernizing your systems and tools, reducing complexity and consolidating and simplifying what technologies you use in your day-to-day businesses, with the biggest part of rethinking how to measure success in the supply chain. As we start to think about the traditional models that are out there, the traditional view of the supply chain is really a discrete progression of design, plan, develop, source, and make. And if you think about it, the old model, this model here, really looked at your company, and your company would sit in here. And then as long that your suppliers would be here and the suppliers, and then your customers would have customers. And this traditionally has been sort of how most companies think of moving through supply chain. As we start to think of the digital supply network, which is housed up here, we start to move away from a linear progression and more thinking of one discrete process. Hey, how do I improve my manufacturing? How do I cut costs? How do I move the digital supply chain into more of a community and more into an integrated network, which is really where we're going with the supply chain and models. As we look at areas to where the trends are and typically what folks have migrated toward, most folks have, what is the perfect order and developing supply chain and management people cost? Well, what is the cash to cash cycle time? What are ways and risks that we need to mitigate? What kind of capital and future capital expenditure am I going to have here? And security and all of these other things that are very, very prevalent in the model. As we start to think of the future, numerous areas exist to improve opportunities for your companies. The ability to drive resilience, pivot, move quickly will be key to the future. Value is the hyper-visibility of real-time information, which is somehow lost and sometimes lost. Digital supply networks really are about technological evolutions. Sensors have come a long way. Machine learning is moving forward. IoT and the Internet of Things, as things talk to things, are getting better. Truly partnering with your network is going to be key. Right now, we spend a lot of time partnering and building and fostering people relationships, but fostering digital relationships in the future will be key. In order for you to start and align with your business strategy, dip your toe, your proverbial toe, of course, in the water, and start looking for trade-offs to select a series of investment opportunities to get you going into this space. Areas like computing, transistors, robotics, storage. If you think about costs of storage, just a few short years ago, storage was massive and very expensive. Today, it's quite economical. Bandwidth and increasing the throughput of the internet as it goes through your organization and digital pipelines as it goes through your organization is no longer as expensive as it once was. This is what the new digital model will look like to all of you. Changes throughout the supply chain are fully connected, multiple levels that exploit dependencies. By digitizing companies, will be more proactive and develop resiliency in the supply chain. So what does it mean for you? And the function of the digital supply network, this is a representation of one. DSN remains to simply move materials, if we think about it. Finished goods, capital, and other assets from place to place, as well as production of finished goods. Managing the transitions here is the key. Exchange of time, money, information, or physical attributes for some other unit or value at its core. That's really the supply chain. The fact that we're doing it digitally now versus by physical means is the change. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to go in this world of advanced computer processing growth in data? How are we going to leverage these algorithms? If we think of the strategic choice framework, which some of you may or may not be familiar with, but in business strategy, this is a common way to get to where you are. What I've tried to do here is align this with the supply chain. So what are the aspirations? What's the purpose? What are your financial objectives and non-financials? Where are you going to play? Where are your customers? What products will serve your customers? What channels are you going to use? How will you win? What's your strategic advantage and your value prop? What's your profit model? What kind of partnerships will you need to foster to move forward in this industry 4.0? What are your capabilities? What systems and technologies are going to be required as we start to think about DSN, the digital supply network? Industry 4.0 and the transition from traditional to an always-on, more holistic DSN will allow companies to shift their strategies, competing across different nodes of the supply chain and not focus on one area at all. Agility is both a blessing and a curse, of course. So many options exist today, and determining where to start can be daunting. Working to understand more about your organization and empowering change will lead to the next generation and lead you in the right direction. As we start to think of the DSN and the always-on and connected communities, and these are the common characteristics that you would see in this space. And this is from the Deloitte's recent DSN analysis survey, just so you understand where some of this content has come from. Sensors that are always on to service data as inputs connected to communities to allow multiple stakeholders to stay connected. It is key in that holistic decision-making to move forward. As you face some of the challenges to drive this and how you're going to get there, transitioning from physical to digital will be the challenge. There's no question. This digital loop can help you visualize the necessary changes that will need to take place. The ability to capture physical information and create a digital record is the reference here. As you start to improve your digital network and build out your supply chain transformations and sample tactics, there are many areas that you can sort of follow through with. The key here is design process optimization, product optimization, planning and inventory. Again, very similar to what we talked about before. Very similar to what we talked about, how that traditional model is there. The difference now is all the physical aspects of that traditional supply chain are now moving to digital. The communication is digital. Us doing this talk digitally is moving to digital, and more you're seeing this framework in the community. So continuing on the vein of how we get there, understanding you and understanding your organization and building out a maturity model. So supply chain assessments are really a review of, what are your areas of expertise? What are your areas of maturity? How can you bring this together to understand your people, your process, your technology and data, and really align? Generally, what we encourage our customers here at Witham is think big, start small. It's a key guiding principle that we try to immerse everybody in. Drive toward innovation and begin building your ecosystem or network. And that very dip your toe in the water is key to understanding how you might move forward. If we think of AI and logistics, probably FedEx is the best known. Way back in the 70s and 80s, FedEx started and embarked on a journey on digital well before anybody else even thought it was possible. And what they built in the logistics model and the routing is a no left turn model. And essentially what they did was look at maps and enforce their FedEx trucks to have no left turn. So it's really a cool feature that happened a long time ago. It wasn't a major, let's transform our entire organization. What it was let's transform a small part, and they did that. Turns out the whole world now uses that no left turn when you're thinking of logistics. What I wanted to do here is bring you into fine-tuning the traditional KPIs that we see. If we think of process efficiency, what we're trying to do is understand whether you're a marginal, competitive, or innovative type company. So if I think of process efficiency and the value of forecast accuracy as a percentage of the value shipped, a marginal company would be around 80%. An innovative company would be 95%. And to get there, we need to do these things digitally. The traditional model where we're dealing with one area and moving through that one area will be very tough. And you can see I've provided more metrics in here. These metrics are not copy paste, this is where I should get to. This is not copy paste, you should be at 95%. This is not for cost effectiveness, you should be at 2631. These are benchmarks for you to grade yourself against and provide yourself a framework to get there. Allow yourself the investment. If I'm at $107 today, and I want to get to 2631, that's not going to happen overnight. And to move here, it's going to require an opportunity investment of some kind, whether that be financial, whether that be people, whether that be new technologies, et cetera, but some form of getting there to increase and work on these elements. So I wanted to share with this, and this will come with the deck when we share after. A case study in closing out my presentation is about 3M. 3M had this, as we think through the pandemic and understanding what they needed to do, they actually needed to build in intelligent supply and digital frameworks to help them distribute millions and millions and millions of masks all over the world. As they walked through their model, I used the same model that we talked about before, but I've now just put 3M at the heart, reduced all the complexity here. And these were the areas that they really wanted to go. So what did they do? They focused on the network and they aligned their capacity. They created a new bimodal model that centered around customers' needs rather than their own. And they didn't make their business model the driver, they made the customer's ability to receive their goods the driver. And they spent a lot of time understanding that. Even though one would argue that they did this pretty quickly, as they were even though despite the size of their organization, they were one of the first to hit the street with delivering masks globally during this pandemic. So I've placed this in here as I think it's very relevant into the conversation. My name's Wally Merkus. I wanted to leave you, and when I share my slides with you, I'll leave you with guiding principles, and I'll leave you with other tidbits on how we go about doing maturity assessments here at Witham, so that you have these tools available to you. I want to thank you very much for your time today. Have a good one.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us as we talk a little bit about 3D printing trends for the world of manufacturing. I am Mindy Beagle, and I am the co-founder and owner of DimensionWorks, which is a 3D printing firm in Ocala, Florida. And we work with manufacturers across the state in 3D printing in a full service manner. We offer CAD services to convert files into 3D. We print parts for customers, and we sell equipment as well. So we work with all aspects of the industry. And usually when I tell people that I am in 3D printing, their faces kind of light up and they start talking about things they've heard in the news, like 3D printed houses or food, or they hear about things that are being printed and used on the space station, or shoes. And they start thinking about these, what I will call buzzworthy applications that are interesting and exciting, but not necessarily that powerful for us in manufacturing. And so I always like to kind of really dive into what are the applications that are most meaningful for those of us in manufacturing. For those of you that don't know, 3D printing is also called additive manufacturing because it is an additive process. Whatever file it is you're creating, imagine that you slice that horizontally and then you produce your material layer by layer in those layers that you've created. And those layers are quite small. I always liken it to half height of a sheet of office paper. So this is a sub-millimeter scale we're talking about that you're building those layers. In terms of materials and the types of things that can be 3D printed, it's not just plastics, although that may be what comes to mind for most people. There are metals, ceramics, food, as I mentioned, concrete, lots of options, but they really all kind of fall into three mediums. There are liquid materials that are printed using UV light to cure them. There are what I will call filaments, so strands of material that are printed using temperature and pressure to extrude them. And that can be plastics, foods, or metals. And then there are powders that are centered together using lasers, and those can be plastics or metals as well. So lots of different ways that those layers are created within printing. The 3D printing market was estimated to be about 12.6 billion last year in 2020. That includes printing services, equipment sales, and materials. And that was a 21% growth year on year. So nice, strong numbers for the industry. They're projecting that it will double in size within the next 5 years. And that's really driven by engineering businesses are continuing to produce more 3D printed parts. And there's some figures there. You can see that large percentages of engineering groups are continuing to use 3D printing more and more. And specifically, not just for prototyping, which is what some people may think it is being driven by end-use parts as well. This slide has a lot of things happening on it, but it's really to share with you that there are a lot of complexities of the industry. There are a lot of different manufacturing industries using 3D printing. So across the top, you'll see automotive, aerospace, healthcare, things like jewelry, food and beverage. So lots of industries, lots of different types of printing, which is the section below. And then it dives into multiple types of printers and materials that can be used. And so I show you this to say there's a lot happening within the world of 3D printing, and it can sometimes be tough to peel back the layers and see where you fit as a manufacturer. What's interesting as well is that within the industry, there are portions of segments that are at different points in a maturity curve in terms of technology. Things like scanning has matured and been around for a long time, and you're seeing that start to plateau, versus if you look at the very bottom of the curve, concrete printing and 3D printed houses is really just starting to grow. The sweet spot for us as manufacturers is what I would call the industrial 3D printing, which is just starting its ascent. So lots of potential on how you can apply that to your business. In terms of specific applications, the first thing that comes to mind for most people is prototyping. That's sort of a no-brainer way to get started within the world of 3D printing. It's all about form, fit, and function as you develop a product. I think the more interesting is when you start to move into pieces to support your manufacturing efforts. There are things like 5S applications for organizing your tools, creating safety devices on your equipment that are easy applications and easy wins for printing. Assembly tools are another great example. That middle picture there is at a Volkswagen facility where they print guides to put on the badging on the cars. So that is a 3D printed guide they use on the assembly line. And lastly, things like gauges for quality checks are another application. That again is in an automotive environment where they're checking the gap on the doors on the assembly line. End-use parts is where there happens to be a lot of growth that people may not think about right away. The top left is a great example of personal devices that can be produced with 3D printing in a much more effective way versus traditional methods. Those are hearing aids in that image. The hearing aid industry and the dental industry rely heavily on 3D printing to produce their end-use parts because it can be so customized and patient-specific. End-use parts can also have small batch quantity applications. That picture there of the LA Dodger helmet is a project that we did for the Dodgers when they wanted to debut a 3D logo on their helmets. Their quantities were about 200, and so it did not make sense to go to injection molding for that production. And so we were able to print those for them, and they applied them to their helmets. What's interesting is that you can also, it's not just for these large use applications, printing can also help you bridge to production with temporary tooling. Think things like a blow mold tool or temporary injection molds where you may get 50 pieces off that mold. It is a shorter lifespan than aluminum tooling, but it is available much faster and at a much lower cost. And so 3D printing is making advancements there. And then finally, short batch production on demand. As many of you probably heard in the news, COVID opened opportunities for 3D printing to shine. And there's some examples I'll talk later on where when you have quick runs of hundreds of parts at a time, you can produce quite a few parts while you're waiting on things like injection mold tooling. So lots of opportunity for short batch production. In terms of trends and what's coming next, I mentioned the pandemic accelerated a lot of trends within the industry. And there's 4 key trends that we see driving for manufacturers: automation, digitization, on-demand production, and relocalization. Automation really happens on 2 ends of the process. When people think printing, they may think you just hit a button and print. But there's a lot of things that go into that workflow. Software would be an example where Pinarello Bikes worked with Materialize, which is a software company within the industry, to work on a project for titanium parts on their bicycles. They needed a weight reduction. They needed 2,000 titanium parts, and they had less than 4 weeks to get that done. And so through software, they were able to run simulations. They were able to reduce the structure and deliver parts that were 35 grams less a piece, which is quite a significant value in the cycling world. Automation is also advancing on the post-process side. So through equipment, eliminating some of those steps to clean up and post-process parts as well. Digitization is really about getting all of your files and your work captured digitally. So lots of work being done with scanning and recreating parts digitally that may not exist. We have lots of customers that have legacy parts that need recreated digitally. And so that is a big trend within the industry right now. Short batch production, like we talked about with COVID swabs, Envision Tech is a manufacturer we're familiar with. They are a leader in dental materials. And so they were able to pivot, use those materials to get clearance for nasal swabs, and we're up and producing hundreds of thousands of swabs on a regular basis using their network of partners that already had printers. So a really quick pivot, able to produce parts rapidly. And then finally, relocalization. Schubert is a manufacturer of manufacturing equipment, and they have started producing a digital warehouse for their components. So when a manufacturer has Schubert equipment in-house, they can download parts from Schubert and print on a printer within their own factory, saving time and inventory, quite frankly, as opposed to ordering from a centralized warehouse. And that's a trend that we're seeing more and more across manufacturers. So that was a really quick run through of things that are happening in the world of 3D printing. If there are any questions from the group, we can answer those at this point in time. I do see one question about what quantities are right for 3D printing when you talk about short batch production. And really, 3D printing shines anywhere from the single quantity up to the tens of thousands. There have been a lot of advancements lately with equipment allowing manufacturers to really see value in printing those tens of thousands quantities. It used to be, maybe 100 was too much, but there's been a lot of advancement in equipment. And so anywhere in that span of units, you can find a good solution within 3D printing. And then finally, somebody has asked, if I am not printing now at my manufacturing facility, where do I start? So I would suggest that you would look through my thoughts on where manufacturers are using it and see what might get you the biggest impact for entry, whether it's the prototyping option, manufacturing support, or end-use parts. And then find that partner that will help you bring yourself into printing. And with that, I think that is the end of our time together. So thank you so much. And I look forward to a productive day with you.
Thank you, Rob, Wally, and Mindy for such great information for our audience on the different aspects and advantages of technology and where to go to learn to find more about them. Our next panel, Technology at Work, will be moderated by Paul Scholl. Paul is a retired Rear Admiral in the U.S. Navy and a graduate of MIT and Stanford. Paul has served as CEO of the Florida High-Tech Corridor Council since June of last year. He leads the Corridor, an economic development initiative of the universities of Central Florida, South Florida, and the University of Florida to attract, retain, and grow high-tech industry and innovation, and the workforce to support it. In 23 counties. We're lucky to have him moderate this panel. The panel Paul will be moderating is a group of manufacturers who have implemented advanced technologies at their companies. These manufacturers will talk about how they got there, where they are now, and how Industry 4.0 has impacted their workforce. Manufacturers are no strangers to automation and, in fact, have led the way. However, the investment to high-tech manufacturing can be capital intensive. With the right strategy and knowledge, the fears of spending a large amount of money with no results can be removed. The use of robotics, process automation, and data management, the benefits of Industry 4.0, can produce large-scale growth. This panel of manufacturers will talk about how they did it and why. A fun fact, these three manufacturers are each members of their respective regional manufacturers association. The Manufacturers Association of Central Florida, Sarasota Manatee Manufacturers Association, and South Florida Manufacturers Association. If you'd like to hear more about any of the regional manufacturing associations that are part of the Florida Makes Network, please make sure to visit them at the Made in Florida Expo on demand or after the event through October. Paul, let's get the conversation started.
Hey, thanks, Zoraida. Hey, everybody who's watching, welcome. Thanks for joining us. As Zoraida mentioned, this is a panel on technology and manufacturing. Today, we've got three manufacturers here. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Myself, Paul Soule, CEO of the Florida High Tech Corridor, and I think perhaps that's why they asked me to moderate the panel, because I love technology. We're a nonprofit organization across 23 counties, going all the way from Tampa through Orlando to Gainesville and then out to the Space Coast. Today, what we're going to highlight is Industry 4.0, and you've got here a panel with individuals who have actually implemented some of the elements of Industry 4.0, and we're going to hear from them. We're going to get questions from the audience, which is great. I'll handle those. The way I'd like to do it, gentlemen, is, and we've got the companies that we have here. We've got Custom Metal Design, that's with Ray. Charles is with PPI Technologies. And then we've got Luis with Travidia Health. I'll start by introducing, and Ray, let me start with you. If you could introduce yourself, kind of talk the audience through the particular technology that you implemented, because I think if we walk away from this panel with an audience that understands technology is possible, that you don't need to fear it, that it actually results in impact in your work, in your company, and what it's done. And then perhaps a little bit about lessons learned. Those, I think, are always helpful for audience members. So with that, Ray, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell me about your company and kind of the technology that you're involved in.
Sure. Well, thanks, Paul. Good morning, everyone. Yes, as Paul mentioned, I'm Ray Agravir. I'm the Vice President and General Manager for Custom Metal Designs. We're manufacturer located in Oakland, Florida, which is about 20 minutes northwest of Orlando. We're in a unique position because we're implementers of Industry 4.0 technology, but we're also, that's what we do as an organization. You know, we're an industrial automations company, so we help companies automate processes. It doesn't always involve robotics, but a lot of it does, and we do industrial robotics, collaborative robotics, and autonomous vehicle robotics. But we also have implemented robotics at our own facility. We have a full EDI program where we can communicate with some of our partners and some of our customers and vendors electronically, you know, without interfacing with the accounting departments per se. It's all done through back office integration. You know, we have a lot of fully automated manufacturing equipment. We're fully vertically integrated. We make all of our own parts, and everything is custom designed, hence our name, Custom Metal Designs, to fit the application. So, you know, on the use side of Industry 4.0, you know, I definitely want to make the audience aware that, you know, there's a stigma that, oh, it's only for big companies. Only big companies can implement some of these technologies and take benefit of some of these, you know, emerging technologies, so to speak. And that's not true. We're not a small company, but we're also not a very large company. We're about 100 employees. And we've been implementing some of these things for years, and it's been a tremendous benefit for our business. We used to run QuickBooks Enterprise many years ago, and that got us to a point. Now we fully implemented SAP, so everything is barcoded in our business. Everything is electronic. Even shop drawings now are viewed on screens instead of on paper. So we really try to use the technology to our benefit, and the use of that technology is what allowed us to continue to grow and become a better organization for our customers and partners. So those are simple things as software, but it was a tremendous benefit for our business and the way it allowed us to keep better track of our processes. We're an ISO certified company, so we have to keep full track of and full visibility of our procurement process, of our manufacturing process, our engineering process, and quite frankly, we could not have done it without the implementation of that software system. So that's just one small thing that we've done that any company can take advantage of and do, and it provided tremendous benefits for us. On the technology side, simple things. We partner with our vendors, and we look for vendors that are able to work with us remotely. We're a full manufacturer. We have a lot of talent in-house, but obviously we're not always the OEM that builds machines and things like that nature of the ones that we use to manufacture our products and services. So we've partnered with some companies that we can do a lot of things remote. We have a set of Google glasses, and when there's an issue with a machine, we can literally put those on, interface directly with the manufacturer of the equipment, and our technicians with their technicians on the other line. I would say 80 to 90% of the time, we can resolve an issue without the expense and delay of having to have one of their technicians come to our facility and work on an issue. So, that's just another simple tool that can be used with some of the technology that exists today that small manufacturers can take advantage of, because one of the things that hurts us the most is when we can't run our machines, we can't make product, we can't meet our customer demands. So simple things like that, stuff that we've implemented over the years, and it's added tremendous value to our organization. To pivot real quick on the what we do for our customers is we'll go into facilities and see, look at processes and determine, what can be automated. And people always think automation, it means robotics or getting rid of people. Not necessarily. Automation can just be improving a process. It may take you an hour right now to do a certain application or a certain process, and through some automation, we make you reduce that to a half an hour. Well, that's automation. That's just looking at a facility or looking at a process and seeing how we can make it more efficient and effective. And that's what we do. So we can do anything from simple conveyor systems to very complex robotics integrations that are fully integrated with their software and their machines to truly automate a process. And that's something that can be done. And we go into facilities all the time, and it's not always recommending a big expensive unit or a big expensive robot. Sometimes we just give them very simple ideas of how they can be more efficient and effective. And that's all part of Industry 4.0, all part of automating. And it's certainly nothing that needs to scare anybody away from looking at it. And, we're here, Florida Makes is here to support those companies in doing those endeavors. And, I would certainly welcome anybody to take a look at their facility, or if they have an interest in implementing some Industry 4.0 items, to reach out to Florida Makes, and then they'll put you in contact with providers or companies such as myself. And we'd love to come in and do an assessment and see what we can do to help you.
Ray, thanks a ton for that, and a couple of thoughts, and we'll get into questions already starting to feed in. So we'll get into some questions that people want to dig more deeply on what you're talking about. But I truly appreciate the idea of your work, the thoughts from your workforce as automation comes on board and their thinking. So we'll get back to that in a second. Luis, let me go to you. Introduce yourself. Talk to the folks about what you do at Trevidia. And especially what intrigued me was, the help with diabetes and the things the technology that goes on in your world for that. So over to you, Luis.
Thank you, Paul. And as you say, Luis Gonzalez Mendez, I'm the Executive Director of Process and Engineering here at Trevidia Health. We are a global diabetes care company here in South Florida. We actually been here for over 30 years, working with our patients and our customers, our partners out there to help all these patients out there with diabetes. And our commitment is to have the high quality at an affordable price products out there. So automation became a key part of this work. if you really want to have the right cost structure for your patients, for your customers, you really need to understand how you can be as optimal, how you can maintain a quality with the lower amount of impact in your actual production environment. And that's always been the battle in medical devices, is you want to have a high volume, high productivity, but you have a commitment to the patient that the quality, we're talking about lives out there that depend on the work that we do. And as Ray mentioned, you know, it's a lot that can be done with automation that is not only making things faster, it's how you look around and step back. And that's one of the things that I always talk to all the manufacturers, from small to large manufacturers, the strategy on how you're going to implement Industry 4.0. We have gone through a journey of over 10 years now. We start with automation, robotics, high-speed operations, and I believe that's the most common or known part of it. But the software part of it, moving from a paper to electronic batch record, that was a big change in the industry, because you were moving from something that it will take you almost 2 days to track all the paperwork, who these what. Now I can take 5 minutes and know exactly where the batch is, who signed what, and what has been going through the entire process. So that has been a great advantage for us. From them, we continue moving to other parts of this Industry 4.0. And I mentioned at the beginning, it's a journey. And that's one of the things that I also want to share with the people listening to us today, is that don't have fear that this is something that you need to pour millions of dollars to take advantage. Organizations like Florida Makes, your local association, you look for that manufacturing association out there that can help you with the process of getting there. Through our aspect, we put different stages. We have going through the automation portion, the Internet of Things, cybersecurity, really important. I know that you guys have been hearing through the day about cybersecurity and how important it is. For Trividia Health, the last 3 years have been taking advantage of all that investment and start moving to the predictability of it. And one big example that we have done that is with our spare part and working with predictive maintenance, working with the machines information. Companies like Ray actually develop equipment that we have acquired that have so much information that can teach us when an equipment can be having problems or we will have problems. So now I can train my team of engineers to actually schedule downtime to take care of machines. First year, we actually dropped by 50% the unplanned downtime. And when you're talking about production, if you take 3 or 4 hours of downtime and you make them of uptime, right there, you have a significant amount of improvement in your production. So that's just a small example of how you take advantage, because in this world, it's two things. I invest money, how am I going to recover that money? And there's so many examples out there that hopefully we can share with you. And that's what we are here to share our experience. And hopefully we can learn more through this excellent panel. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, and Luis, thanks for that. One of the common themes between you and Ray already that's got me intrigued is this isn't a 100-yard dash. This is a journey. This takes, you know, learning. It takes persistence. It takes support. And we're going to get to that here as some more of these questions come in. Let me now toss it over to Charles. Charles, you've got an interesting organization over there at PPI Technologies, that technology group. Why don't you describe who you are, where you're from, and what you all do in the manufacturing world, and how technology has played a part?
Thank you much. So where I'm from is pretty easy, South Africa. I came to Michigan State University and like the States, applied, got my green card, and arrived here 30 years ago. So set up in Chicago, the weather decided I should move, and arrived in Florida. So we set up down here. What we've got is 3 divisions. The main division, in following on the other 2 speakers, is we manufacture machinery that we can't find people to run today. And that means we've moved, and both gentlemen hit exactly what we're doing. We're going away to automation. Electronic automation, making sure that everything we make, for example, a 600 a minute machine, we want all products to be the same. The quality control people can't measure 600 a minute. There's no person that can do that. So we rely on photographs, electronic signals, alarms. Let's take another one. If someone doesn't wash the machine, our system won't allow it to start. If someone short circuits the washing, instead of 30 minutes does 20, it's going to report it as incomplete or not done. The other side of our business which is pretty important. We have 2,500 customers in the United States, ranging from pharmaceutical FDA right through to USDA for food, EPA for lotions. So we're in that part of everything to look after your body. We call it the wellness business. And those government authorities, their mandate is to check what you're doing, not how you do it. What's your resolve? Did you have a failure? What's your recall process? And so we could have a machine in Nebraska, and I could have one in Texas, and they could have a recall. The first guy they're going to look at is, to me, is why didn't the system alert us? So we've put QC, QA, very important, and what we call federal, in other words, FDA, all those government standards into the computer system. So there's a back check. There's a tremendous amount of work done. It takes 30 minutes to start a machine to touch on efficiencies. But once it starts, that won't stop. It doesn't stop for tea breaks, doesn't stop for lunch. It just keeps running long as the materials are being fed. So our whole aim is to I guess, train a new group of engineers running from an office, running the machine wherever the machine's placed. And that really, gentlemen and ladies, that is going to be the future. You're going to put a machine in, you're going to put it in where the dollars pay. It might be in the middle of the sticks somewhere you know where it would normally go, but that's going to be to know that that machine's running. And with your telephone, your cell phone, you can monitor the screen. And we are running today 2,500 plants with 10 technicians who hardly travel. They're sitting in their office, they're talking all day long, and they're monitoring through the cell phone or a computer what is occurring in that plant. So that's our aim. We are looking at the factories without people, but the office with everybody that's going to run.
Luis, let me start with you, and then we'll kind of go around. Your thoughts on the workforce piece and that connection as technology comes on board.
Yes, I know. I think that Charles was really good at explaining that the need for that separation in the environment is happening today. That is not that people are not being working, it's where they are working, how they are working. I echo his request that people need to start getting retrained, or the school system need to really start working together to what is this job of the, and I'm not going to say anymore the job of the future, is the job of today, because we have the needs, they are out there. From our perspective, we continue working with the local organizations, the associations. Here in South Florida, we have the South Florida Manufacturing Association, really engaged with the school programs, with the different colleges, and trying to bring that plan together on what is going to be looking for the next 10 years, 20 years. From the standpoint of the workforce, it's really critical for us that there are a lot of tasks that cannot be done by humans. It's just the nature of the business and the industry. Like Charles was mentioning, putting 20 people to inspect 600 items per minute cannot happen. You really need to rely on technology. Now, having the opportunity to have these people working on the vision system, electronics, reviewing data, analyzing the defects, and improving, that is where the people is going to be. And a big example, I'm going to connect it to something that is pretty close to a lot of us, is COVID-19. We were able, and we still today being able to be really effective in our organizations due to technology. My engineers can connect to the machines from their laptops, from their houses. They can troubleshoot using the phone. We can call different companies to come, instead of coming here and doing actual work on the facility, they can actually connect to the computer, to the machines, and fix the machines. So for almost 18 months now, we don't have any downtime due to specific of COVID situation or COVID cases. And I will tell you, the reason for that is our understanding of the future was Industry 4.0 and taking advantage of all these elements. So anybody out there that have going through the challenge that is thinking is like, man, if I really had the opportunity to have automation, do this really can help me? I will tell you that yes, automation was a critical part for us as a medical device to basically protect all our employees. That was critical for us, but also don't need to stop the business during these difficult times. So going back to your question, yes, the workforce is critical. We are working to get more of the employees to be retrained. A lot of our engineers have created internal classes, or we partner with the Broward College to develop courses that we can send our employees to then get retrained and get more exposure to what is electronics, computers, and understanding that part. So that's how Travidia has been working in the last, I would say 3 to 4 years now in that aspect.
Yeah, so thanks, Luis. Ray, let me ask you kind of a similar question, and gentlemen, feel free to jump in as others talk and interesting items come up. And one of the things Luis talked about is the importance of partnerships as you look at the workforce and retraining. And certainly with the pandemic, all sorts of sectors of our economy have really forced people to sort of sit back and think about, hey, what do I want to do next, and how does this work? Can you talk about partnerships that you have, or examples, creative examples of making sure you have the workforce you need?
Sure. Yeah, I agree with Charles and Luis, regarding the changing nature of the workforce needed for, like Luis said, today and in the future, right? We're, in anything we do, even our welders today, that are welding our components, they're interfacing with our system. They're barcoding, they're scanning in their work orders, they're pulling in their drawings out of the SolidWorks model, they're taking a look at it on the screen, deciding what needs to get done. So there's a level of automation in every job, quite frankly, and in manufacturing in particular, as we move from old line technologies to the technologies that I provide, that Charles provides, that Luis uses. It's exactly what is missing is that the technical skill marrying to the old line blue collar skill. So if you're a mechanic, or if you're a welder, if you're a machinist, now there's so much more interaction with systems than there was before, and that's the area that we need to focus on, retraining and or training our workforce in the future. And through you spoke partnerships. I was privileged enough to be one of the speakers that got to talk to the board of trustees at Valencia College, which is one of the major colleges in our area, to start a manufacturing program. And I believe at the time it was an $18 million investment to put a manufacturing center in Kissimmee, where they now teach machining, welding, mechatronics, all types of things. And so I've been involved from very early in the process, because I've been at Custom Metals for 16 years. And one of the first things I saw was there's a lot of gray hairs in my organization, a lot of people that have been there a long time. And guess what? Those people want to work hard and then enjoy their retirement, right? So what happens when they leave? Well, you got to replace them. And a lot of times that skill set and that knowledge and that wasn't there. And, we've been working very closely with our partners at many of the colleges and universities in our area to develop programs and systems that will train that workforce to meet the needs of manufacturers. And they've been doing a great job. We've got a long way to go, but we're certainly a lot better than we were. And, I think that's incumbent on manufacturers to step in and help themselves, because a lot of times, you hear that the manufacturers don't get engaged, don't get involved. They just want to say, we don't have people, we can't find people, I can't find people. But, those of us that get engaged and get involved, we can help the process, and all manufacturers can be part of that, to go to the schools and say, hey, I would hire 4 of your students if they had this skill set, or I really need this developed in your student base. Whatever the case is, get involved, get plugged in. Like Luis said, he's got a local, he actually is the chair of his local workforce manufacturing board. I am as well, for the Manufacturers Association of Central Florida. And then we all kind of roll up into the Florida Makes Network. But I mean, there's avenues there for manufacturers to get engaged and get involved and help the educational institutions develop that skill set, or those talents, or that workforce that they're needing. It's a partnership on all levels, and they have to get engaged to really help themselves through that process.
Yeah, I tell you, Ray, and just in my year and a half in this job at the corridor, definitely see sometimes some disconnects. The educational or the training group says we provide exactly what you need, and then you find that perhaps that's not exactly the case. And I think one of the keys there is what you highlighted about being engaged. And I would tell the audience, and the questions are coming in now, so let me dovetail to the next one, is be engaged. That's important. So let me start with Charles. So the question, there's a theme of questions that are coming in about what makes you decide to pick a technology an advanced technology, an industry 4.0 technology, and implement it. Number of sort of sub questions there. You know, they look at industry 4.0 and go, oh my gosh, the menu is huge. I have no idea what to do next. Can each of you talk about, and I'll start with Charles, kind of what went into the thought process of what made a good technology selection for you?
So let me just give you an example. If you go with the FDA, you know, I know people aren't aware, FDA does not approve anybody's product. FDA writes a set of rules. And the rule is page 1, do you have a qualified technician? If you don't meet that rule 1, FDA doesn't consider your plant in order. So do you need a doctor or do you need a specialist? They don't say who they got to be, but they've got to know their criteria. So our first approach was saying, okay, we want to go automation, we want to go computers, and gentlemen, we must be one of the few factories around that has a games room. You know, games, kids, computer games? Because when we interview these people, young girls, young guys, we say to them, what's your favorite game? Because that technique, how they've got around the game, what their reaction is, what's their movement in playing, and you watch this kid come in, you know, a little nervous or anything, you put him in front of that room, and you've got a different monster there. They either are not sure, or they enter into the game, or they played it. So that gives us that understanding of electronics. The second side, from where we look at the government or looking at what I want to implement, you know, 600 a minute, 24 hours, you've got nobody can watch that. But the store chain, Walmart with 4,500 stores, that works out of 4 cases a week. They want to know those 4 cases are perfect, okay? So we got to have someone that can follow the flow, just like they followed that game, how to start it, who to kill, who to jump on, who to knock out, how to win. How does the film come in? How did the raw material come in? Did it come with a certificate? You see where you're going? So we're drawing, I always refer to it as a set of photographs. Birth, somebody had that great idea, and then we break down that idea in a chain. Think of a tree with branches, but upside down. And we're going down that branch. Can you make it? Can I get a supplier? And the guy running the machine is not the best production person, we learned. How do you like that? He's the best analyst. And the production guy, if you aim him in the direction you want, that 600 figure is his target. He's 600, 605. You know, the old days of 95%. And I'm saying the old days. In the old days, when you're doing 20 a minute, 95 was 1, right? At 600 a minute, 5% loss is nearly a case of product. You get it? So when I hear factories saying I'm at 95%, you don't want to touch those production guys because they are 20 years old. What I want is the guy to say I'm at 101, 105. And you know who's taught them that? The schools allow them to get more than 100%.
Mm.
And that's what you want to ask the student. How many times did you get over the 100?
Yeah.
You see the question? So interviewing, and I'm on the regions at the local FSU in town, Florida, Sarasota. I do a lot of lecturing on how to launch a product. Because half the time, you know, 20,000 products are launched in North America. You know how many pass a year or get repeat orders? Under 200.
Mm-hmm.
Think of that. So all that money, all those people, all that talent, all that stuff, and it didn't make it. And
right.
For my mind, it's the school. We've got to accept in the school that the kids play with telephone or they play games. They lock away your phone. I think switch it off from private calls, but let them record, let them photograph. My company photographs every 5 minutes and videos every 30 minutes, every machine. We can call at midnight or 1 o'clock what happened, right? So what we're looking today is people that are totally electronic friendly. It's no longer pen friendly. It's working with whatever. They can talk to it, they can mime, they can ask. You can talk to my machine and say, switch on. You can also say, how many times did you stop?
Yeah, you're highlighting some good, good thoughts of engaging that new workforce that you have and what interests them.
And schooling.
Yeah. Let me ask Ray kind of a similar question on that. Back to the sort of, you picked the technology. You talked about robotics. There are a lot of other things that you can do. And any thoughts for the audience on why you chose the technology you did?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, both as a consumer of Industry 4.0 and as a provider of Industry 4.0, one of the big things for all of us, and I think Luis mentioned it as well, is, and Charles does it with his equipment, is uptime, right? So when I'm running my laser 20 hours a day, I need that laser running 20 hours a day. If it's down for 6 hours, that's a lot of product that I don't make, and I need to be making, right? Because we're all busy, everybody in manufacturing anyway. I mean, 2020 through the pandemic was my busiest year ever as an organization in nearly 50 years, and 21 is ahead of 20. So, we need those machines up and we need them to be working. So that was the main impetus for us, was to, in the machinery that we buy to make our product, is how good is the support mechanism? How good are they at having us being able to support us remotely so that we can diagnose? I have mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, electricians all on staff. So we just need some support, and how good are they at providing us that support? So we wanted to make sure that there was good electronic interfacing between the machinery and our people so that we can diagnose and resolve problems. And I think Luis also mentioned, predictive analytics. That's something that we are very keen on. We want to be able to tell our customers, hey, your servo motor, it's not performing optimally. It looks like it's out of tune. That's generally an indication that there's something wrong and it could lead to a failure soon. You may want to get this part on order. One of the things we haven't mentioned is the supply chain today is in a completely different world than it was 6 months ago. Things that we were able to just take for granted and have metal here the next day, or have a photo eye or a component here, in less than a week, those days are gone. There's some items that we're waiting on, simple motors, weeks now, where it used to be days. So predictive analytics and those types of things that help us kind of see when our machines are beginning to have a failure or potentially will have a failure will allow us to react and get things moving in a way that we can, keep the uptime going, which is critical to all manufacturers. We need those machines working. And those are the types of things that we do as a consumer of Industry 4.0, but also as a provider. Our machines, like Charles is saying, are very integrated with systems and predictive analytics and being able to remote into the machine and help our teams and our customers solve problems remotely so that we can maintain uptime as much as possible.
Yeah, so go ahead, Luis, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, and going back to your question specifically, I want everybody here to remember, you are the expert in your company. You know what is good, what is right now happening in your company. So when you're thinking about selecting, we can help with information, but it's actually you and your organization that can actually go through the process. And then we talk about process of evaluating what is the right technology that you need to start getting into. Internally, we have something that I developed, we call the complexity analysis. That's something that if anybody is interested to learn more, we can talk separate, but is how complex is what you're trying to do. And it doesn't have to do with the technology, it's with your expertise, your resources, and how much have you been exposed to this type of technology. It can be from a electronic batch record, really simple, a lot of solutions out there, softwares that are pre-made, really easy to implement. That can be a nightmare for you if you don't have the expertise. So selecting the technology, number one, you as a company, make the decision that you're going to start this journey. Number two, create your group of people that are going to be the ambassadors of this journey. The ones that really encourage, they really command, they have knowledge, but also they have the people skills to start working with your organization to adapt to this new way to do it. And number three is pick the areas that you have expertise, maybe not in the technology, but in the process or in the actions. That will make that process simpler, and you can have good wins that you can show to, finance always is there. So you need to show your wins, get the money, and then you can continue escalating in that Industry 4.0. So for me, that's one of the key things when you're picking. I cannot tell you what, but we can help you through the process.
Yeah, no, and Luis, that's great. And I'm thinking of a couple of things. One is it has as much to do with change management in an organization. And so you talk about the people skills. And one of the things I've noticed across the corridor in our universities, in our colleges, and in our high schools, those in fact, I've heard people say, I hate the term softer skills, because those are the skills that I think our younger generations, you know, they're great. They're already involved in teaming, and those are critical to be able to do the change piece of it. Hey, so let me give you, all three of you, a heads up, because I will go around at the end, because I want to make sure at the end I give you a couple of minutes each, or a minute or so, to highlight anything else that you want the audience to know. The questions keep flowing in. I've got one topic that I want to answer, and I'm also cognizant of the fact that I don't want this thing to go much more than 30 minutes or so, and it's been great. So thank you all for this. The questions that are coming in center on data. So I'm interested in your thoughts about how you are now using data. You talked about prognostics and health management. So the predictability piece, that takes data. The machines themselves, operating them remotely, that takes data. So I'm interested in, and Charles, I'll start with you. Your thoughts in general on lessons learned about data, or a surprise aha moment about, hey, we had this data and we were able to use it to be able to accomplish something, or the need to upgrade systems. I mean, the amount of data that we're inundated with is huge. So let me start with you, Charles, and then I'll go around.
I think first thing, whatever data you've got in your company, backup. So without that, we use the cloud. We have a downloading procedure every single night. We're all in Florida, hurricanes. So all my information every 12 hours is actually sent to Georgia. So we can be back in business and exactly a minute or 2 minutes after the hurricane has knocked my building out. Just going on a computer and logging back. So safety of data, security of data, and then following on one of the trends I heard earlier, let's take one of the cogs on a machine in the pharmaceutical industry keeps breaking. We can use that information on that same cog in all the other machines by saying to all our customers, we put it out, we're noticing an increase in ordering for that part. Please have your engineering look at that part. So most of our machines have about 2,500 pieces, just as an average. We monitor the ordering parts of those 2,500. So if something's buying regularly, whether it's a used part, we'll carry it. But it's the unusual ones that keep a machine out of business. I think I heard one of the guys say taking a week or 2 weeks. You realize if you're following what's happening in China with the containers, they have machines ready to ship. Vietnam has stuff to ship. My Italian guy has stuff to ship. They have no containers. What happened in the world in the last year, because harbors were closed, people weren't working, containers are sitting everywhere but where they should be. Mm-hmm. So if we think you're going to get out of it, it's going to take a year to get this back. Yeah. You're going to have to. I'm getting people asking me, the machine I traded in with you, do you still have? And I borrowed while I wait for my new one. Think of that. And that is a daily occurrence. Can you lend us? I run contract packaging operation. We're contracting packing around the clock for people because their machine's down and the part's not available. And it's not necessarily my machine down. It could be the 106 on the line. And so we've got to start also thinking from a security for the country, for our food people. What are the key parts to keep this process? I heard, okay, in Luis, with your sugar diabetes, we do diabetes 1 and diabetes 2, to give you an idea. Mm-hmm. So the component that the doctors use to stop the ulcer, diabetic ulcer, if we don't make it in this country, it's not available in the rest of the world. So that's what comes from data. Yep. What is the data? Can I get the raw material? If the country's supplying it, are they on lockdown? Yep. Italy was closed, for how long? I don't know if it's 100% open yet. France is up and down. England, you can forget. So all of that approach to industry, and we're one machine on the line. We're a cog, okay? But the data coming out from 4.0, my German data comes to me and says, Siemens is down. You realize, wow, what can they do?
Right.
So that data we need to know. You see, for stocking, you can't
and Charles, you've highlighted too a number of things: logistics and supply chain, and how all these things feed together. The security piece with that Ray brought up as well. Ray, in about a minute, talk to me about the data. Your thoughts on data, what you've learned, where you're headed in the future with the the ability to process data. I'm thinking already about where AI can play into this world, but your thoughts in about a minute.
Yes, software. We we were doing everything paper. We're not fully paperless, but we're there. We're getting there. We're working towards that. But everything is barcoded. Everything is scanned. Every piece of data set is stored and analyzed. AI does a lot of that, and that's something that like Luis said, you have to have the right skill sets in your organization. But really, implementing some software and some automation in that way is something every organization can and should do. It's provided us tremendous amount of information. Like, this part used to take us a week to get, now it takes 6 weeks. Well, now we can go in through our ERP system and start demanding that part sooner in our process so that we make sure we have it when the line needs it, so on and so forth. That all starts with data. Every single operator now scans into the part that they're working on, they scan out of it. So that not only tells us which part is getting worked on, where it is at in the process, who did it, how long it took them to do it, where it's moving next, where it came from. All that was data that we did not collect in an efficient manner even 5 years ago. So today, a customer can call in, I can tell them, yes, your part is here. It was moved from this process to this process yesterday, and it'll be out the door on Friday. That was information that would have taken me hours to compile, in times past, and now it takes me 30 seconds. So, software, data is king, and it's going to be more important as we progress in the future.
Yeah, Luis, in about a minute, your thoughts on data.
I think that Ray and Charles have done a great job to explaining most of them. The third element that I think there is the element of translation. Data is a language. If you don't have the right person to translate the information, and I agree with Ray, you need to have the software, because the amount of data generated these days is so much that a human being will not be able to just go through it, or hours before they actually can make a decision. So softwares are critical, but also the person still there that can actually translate the information to really understand. I've been now connecting all the way from customer complaints all the way to my incoming QC. So now I can understand, when my patients say that this is happening in my product, I can go back and identify it, go to my supplier and say, these type of defects cannot be acceptable. Why? I have now information. So that's how powerful data it is. But not having the right translation of that information, and that goes back to the connection of the workforce. Having the right workforce, connecting with the right software, that is what the future is going to look like. So for my part is, Charles did a great job, the data, back it up, have it available. From Ray, have the right software to process it as soon as possible. And for my part is having the right people that really can understand what the data means for everybody.
Yeah, that's great, Luis. Gentlemen, thank you. We could go on. The questions are, we're going to figure out how to get those things answered offline. But thank you, all three of you, for what you're doing, for the products that you produce, but also the opportunities that you give to Floridians to be a part of the interesting thing that goes on in manufacturing and the critical nature of manufacturing. Thanks to Florida Makes for sponsoring this. Keep those comments coming in. They'll take all the questions and we'll be able to answer them. On behalf of the Florida High Tech Corridor and everybody in Florida, I agree with all three of these guys about the need for manufacturing. I hope you feel empowered. I hope you feel like you can reach out to these three. You can reach out to Florida Makes, and that journey starts with one step. Take that step, because it's coming fast and we want to see you all succeed. So with that, thanks much, gentlemen, and we'll see everybody out on the manufacturing floor.
Thank you so much, Paul, for moderating that panel of great information for us. Thank you on behalf of all the sponsors, our panelists, our speakers, our moderators. Thanks go to all of you for your participation in making today's session successful. It's now time to join your fellow attendees for live networking. 2 pop-up windows will appear on your screen momentarily. One is for you to please complete a short evaluation survey of today's sessions. And the other one you can click on to access live networking. And Dave Dragon will be leading you in that again this afternoon. When you click on the live networking pop-up, it will take you to a Zoom room where you can network with all the other attendees. Please stop by and say hello. You can also take this time to visit our partners and sponsors in the MakeMore Manufacturing Expo Showcase. Live networking will adjourn in 30 minutes. And we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll continue to gather your ideas, information, and key outputs from you starting at 8:30. See you then.